Good evening. Welcome to this week's episode of the Paranormal Lens podcast presented by Jott-Nyx Paranormal. I am Jamie Widener. I'll be your host for the evening, along with Chad Thomas, as always. Mr. Thomas, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Jamie. How are you?
Busy, busy,
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
we have a lot going on. My profession has a lot going on. It's a busy season. And then, we had a kid graduate, and apparently everybody has to have a party, right?
There was a kid who graduated.
There
Wait,
was a
what?
kid who graduated. I have proof of that. Um,
Hmm.
and afterwards, then there's this party, there's that party. Like all these kids are social butterflies all of a sudden. It's amazing.
More
So
than when they were in school.
I know, right?
I,
Hustling and bustling to get them everywhere.
yeah,
More
because
round, another 2 rounds coming up this weekend, and maybe
yeah,
we're done. I don't know.
I
And
think yeah, I took him to two last weekend.
yep,
And these kids stay up real late, Jamie.
they do.
It's like they're paranormal investigators. 1 o'clock is when I was going to pick Zoe up the other night. So
Yeah, wow, that's great. I mean, not great because it's 1 o'clock and we're old people, but yeah,
but but anyway, it's good, and I'm glad
I
that.
remember these days. So
Yep, I'm
vaguely,
glad.
anyway.
It's important to spend time with friends.
Yes.
These are the bonds that you make and you keep for a long time. That's this group of friends that I can see just being that long term. These 3 or 4 people that
Yeah.
they're going to these parties for. So
They've
anyway,
come a long way together, and they're
yep.
certainly not done yet. I agree.
So anyway, yeah, it's been busy. I got the same thing. Work had taken a hiatus for a couple weeks, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we don't want to be slow. We want to have several things going on again. So that's where we're at.
The
So
business likes to pay bills, right?
it's
I
good.
get it.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Same with mine. It's that time of year, so
So,
we'll make the hay when the sun shines.
hmm
Cool.
so anyway,
Yeah, and we haven't done anything paranormally in a while. So we have a little bit of a break in our schedule with investigations. We'll talk about what we got coming up here at the end of the episode, but a
hmm
little bit off. But we're still like a couple weeks out from actually having a public event again. So it's like it's nice. There's this lullish thing, but also there's kind of like I'm starting to twitch a little bit.
yep.
Let's get to it. So I don't know. So we
Well,
probably should talk about some paranormal stuff instead.
it's a good thing then that we've got this, so we can just keep in touch with the paranormal stuff.
Yeah, it's exactly that. This is our gap in between, so we'll fill it up. Hey, there's Jim. Hey,
So
good evening. Oh, hi guys. I was sad last week. Well, we were on Jim, but we weren't on Facebook. I'm sorry for that. We had a bit of a technical glitch. It was there and then it was gone, and we couldn't get it back during the episode. So it is available on YouTube if you get that way
it's
to
on.
follow up on the episode and on all the streaming stores. Actually, it is on Facebook now. I
Yep,
guess
because I
you
stayed up
caught
and
up.
restreamed it afterwards. Yep.
We caught up to it, but it just wasn't there in the moment. They didn't like us apparently. Chad didn't pay the bill. Maybe I don't. I didn't pay the bill. It's probably more like it. But yeah, thanks for noticing. At least sorry we missed you too.
So, and Bert's with us, and
Bert's
he is
with us.
also having withdrawals.
Yeah, I know, right? And well, we have the Lynches and I and a few others are heading north in a few weeks, so we'll talk about that later. But we're gonna get our get our groove on uh,
Hmm.
up in New England. So, but tonight, we are
Hmm.
here to talk about a place that has fascinated me for quite a while. Something I became aware of many years ago now, but maybe, I shouldn't say many, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, which is many, I guess, depending on your span. But um, it is a place called Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. Chad, have you heard of this before?
I have not.
Okay.
So
Oh, cool. Well, good.
I'm learning. I'm learning with the group here.
I'll educate you. Um, so, where are we in the world? We are at 9182 Highway 116 in Petros, Tennessee. Now, where is that? It's about an hour northwest of Knoxville. So, eastern Tennessee, up in the mountains, and in the foothills at least. Um, and it is one of the most notorious prisons the volunteer state has ever created. Built in 1896 for a population of around 600 inmates, Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary was more than a correctional facility for some of Tennessee's worst inmates, or criminals, I'm sorry. It was also a labor camp to mine for coal. The prison was a direct result of the Oak Creek War, which was a violent and bloody labor dispute in nearby Anderson County. The dispute started when local coal miners went on strike. And who could blame them? The mining companies provided housing due to the generally remote locations coal was found. Because they owned the housing, the mining firms also opened company stores where food, clothing, and all other essential goods were sold at highly inflated prices. Given the meager wages earned in the mines, when the rent and store debt was paid, there was very little left for the miners and their families from doing such dangerous work. Considering the mining companies were getting rich and the workers were being put further into debt, and the miners opted to strike in midwinter when the demand for coal was at its highest.
This reminds me of a song, Jamie.
It does, actually.
I owe my soul to the company store, or something like
Yep.
that.
Yep. You want to
Anyway,
sing it? Go
no,
ahead.
I'm not
Go.
going to sing it. No,
No.
no.
Okay. Okay.
Copyright infringement, you know.
No, that's true. Off air, we'll do it. Okay. So during the strike, the state of Tennessee leased inmates from other prisons to help in the mines to keep the coal flowing. While seemingly a good idea, this action led to even more violence, and seeing an opportunity to cash in on the rich coal veins in the area, the Tennessee legislature voted to build the penitentiary, which opened in 1896. Given the steady dependence on coal, a solution to expand the mining capacity was to house more inmates. By the time the Great Depression came, the prison was home to more than 970 men, or just about 50% of its original capacity. But let's look back a bit. The original prison was a stick-built structure built by the prisoners, along with a rail spur to move coal and connect with the ever-growing rail system across Tennessee and the rest of America. Life at Brushy Mountain was hard for the inmates from the start, with violence, dangerous working conditions in the mines. Mind you, there was no OSHA back then, and diseases such as tuberculosis, typhoid fever, pneumonia, and syphilis running rampant. It goes without saying that there wasn't any real medical care, which hindered the output of many of the workers in the mines. Add insult to injury, or maybe better said, injury to injury, many inmates were severely beaten for underproducing in the mines, leading to untold deaths. Overcrowding became so bad that the original wooden structures were literally crumbling around the inmates, and it was a bit of a miracle that the prison never went up in flames during the winter months, where men crowded around a few stoves found on each floor. Many likened the condition at Brushy Mountain to those told of the Soviet gulags in Siberia. Apparently, the state of Tennessee did not appreciate such comparisons, and plans were made in 1931 to build a new prison made of reinforced concrete. In traditional Tennessee penal system fashion, the inmates went from digging coal to digging sandstone from a local quarry to use in the construction. The new prison was constructed in the design of a Greek cross, was 4 floors high, had battlements, and by the time it opened in 1934, was enclosed in an 18-foot stone wall. For a while, things were better. New facilities were safer, much more sanitary, and given that it was designed in the shape of a cross, it perceptually at least allowed for the inmates to have a path to redemption. Let's jump ahead. Since the prison was created to have a prison labor mine coal, the prisoners mine coal, it shouldn't surprise anyone that this existence went on through the 1960s. In fact, if an inmate was sent to Brushy Mountain, he knew he was going to have to work the mines. Up until 1969, the prison was classified as maximum security, but in 69, 100 beds were added for those with less offenses and new accommodations created outside the main prison building. These inmates were part of a work release initiative where they held positions in the local community, including serving as volunteers for the nearby Petros Voluntary Fire Department up through 1994. Even with this transition, Brushy Mountain was still the last stop for the worst criminals in the Tennessee penal system. It was also where inmates from other prisons were sent when they were no longer welcome at their former facility. Brushy Mountain finally closed for good in 2009, but before it did, here are a few key events. First, the mines were closed in 1967 after a significant accident killed 2 inmates, bringing attention to the harsh conditions and unsafe labor practices at the prison. Interestingly, Warden Lake Russell cited a loss of revenue in the mines as a reason for the closure, completely dismissing any issue with the working conditions. The mines had to be profitable in order for them to operate, and they were losing money. In 1972, the prison guards went on strike, demanding increased security at the prison. As a result, the prison literally was closed until 1976, with most inmates transferred to another maximum security facility in Nashville. When the prison reopened, another issue arose. Tensions between white and black inmates were challenging a system that wasn't capable of handling it. The situation came to a head in 1982 when 7 white inmates took guards hostage at knife point. The guards' weapons were taken, and when 4 black inmates were found in the cell, the white inmates opened fire, killing 2 men. Excuse me. While there were some very bad people in prison at Brushy Mountain, there's one you may recall. After confessing to the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1969, James Earl Ray was sentenced to Brushy Mountain. In 1971, he managed to remove a cinder block from the wall of his cell, and if it weren't for the fact it led into the steam plant, he may have escaped. Undaunted, he did escape in 1977 along with 6 other inmates using a 16-foot ladder made of salvaged pipe. Now, Chad, how does one hide that kind of thing?
That's a good question.
16-foot pipe ladder. Come on. They can do better. Ray was captured 2 days later, having only made it about 8 miles from the prison. Lastly, in 1981, Ray was stabbed 21 times by 3 inmates, some say as revenge for killing MLK. Surprisingly, he survived.
Hmm.
For all the harshness and evil, there were a few bright spots. In 1982, on the site of the old segregated bathhouse, the Brushy Chapel was built. While no exact records exist, it is believed that over 1,000 inmates were baptized at the chapel. Some may call it jailhouse religion, where inmates believed if they found God and acted the part, they might get an early release. There were many who truly repented their sins. I love this one. In the early 1970s, a young deer fell from the cliff into the prison yard. When he was found by the inmates, they decided to keep the deer as a pet and named him Geronimo, since he literally jumped into the prison.
Yeah.
Eventually, Geronimo was tamed, and it was said that he enjoyed chewing on unlit cigarettes, proving that everyone smoked in the 70s. To wrap up the history of Brushy Mountain, I came across this quote credited to an unnamed assistant warden that made me pause. Quote, "We get the hard to manage inmates. That's the function of this institution. It's the end of the line. They're serving long sentences and they're in close confinement. You do that to a bunch of rats and they start chewing on each other. Humans are not so different." End quote.
Something to say there, definitely.
Yeah. So, Brushy Mountain is a bad place. It is the worst of the worst criminals, violent offenders. Violence was common. There are stories of people being murdered in the cafeteria on a regular basis. There are, the laundry facilities, anywhere where people could be potentially left alone with someone they may have a grievance with, violence occurred.
Hmm.
And it didn't seem, regardless of who the warden was or who the guards were, it just continued. And that leads me to believe some of it was acceptable or allowed. And I might get to that just a bit, but
look the other way, sort of.
The other way, right? There might be some payoffs happening. There might be some favoritism happening. It's amazing, and it's an era as well. The time and the place that it was. Right. Tennessee, and being a southern state, there was definitely color violence happening. Whites and blacks not getting along, and it just led to already heightened criminality happening. That these are already violent people, and they don't stop just because they're behind a jail cell. So. Right. And that leads us to paranormal stuff, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, right. So let's talk about some of the paranormal claims. So there's the traditional things. There are disembodied voices and screams. There are strange animal sounds where there are no animals on the property. There are shadow figures, cold spots, the sound of footsteps, slamming doors, cells and otherwise, and people are touched, scratched, and some even choked. Let's explore a few of the claims. The spirit of an inmate named Jack Jett is believed to still inhabit the prison. Jack was a little person and an inmate with a reputation for snitching on other inmates. And Chad, we all know what snitches get, right?
Snitches get stitches.
Yeah, well, this is a little bit worse than that.
Mm.
The story goes that one night he was making a call to his mother on a communal phone when he was stabbed 19 times in the neck and back, bleeding out before help could arrive. Imagine this happening during a call to your mother.
Yeah.
Inmates reported seeing, and afterwards, inmates reported seeing the phone receiver lifting off its cradle and being returned by unseen hands, and a significant cold spot in that space. Perhaps Jack is still trying to call his mom. Second, the prison yard was often run by a death row inmate named Leroy. Leroy was a classic bully, tormenting many of his fellow inmates until one day one of his victims took his revenge when Leroy's back was turned in the exercise area and stabbed him while he was doing push ups. Leroy died of the wounds. Investigators asking if anyone is in this area have captured an EVP of someone softly saying Leroy. Other investigators have reported being scratched in this area. Maybe Leroy is still lurking around the yard looking for victims.
Mhm.
An investigator is said to have played the entirety of MLK's famous I Have a Dream speech in James Earl Ray's old cell and claims to have captured an EVP saying, Hush.
Interesting.
Another claim is that during the showing of a movie in the auditorium, an inmate had his throat slit with a handmade knife. Instead of taking the victim for medical attention, the guards, likely in cahoots with the attacker, placed the inmate in a padded cell without any medical attention, where he slowly bled to death. Since then, there are reports of a dark apparition crawling around the floor of the auditorium on all fours. The spirit has aptly been named the Creeper.
Okay.
One of the black men killed by the gang of white men was named James. The story goes that if you leave a lit cigarette in the cell he died in, he will take drags from it and even leave puffs of smoke hanging in the air like we do with the living when exhaling. And the cherry or the bulb of the cigarette is actually appeared to be brightening as if someone were taking a drag as well.
Hmm.
The smokers in the room get what I mean.
Mhm.
The Brushy Chapel has been an area with significant EVP recordings, many unsettling for a chapel, such as Hell, Beast, and Pain. When the prison was still open, inmates claimed to have seen objects move or float across the room and to experience unexplainable cold spots, even in the middle of summer. So much so that inmates would often joke that they were willing to brave the ghosts to get cooled off amid the heat of a Tennessee summer.
Uh-huh.
I don't blame them. You ever been
No.
in Tennessee in the summertime?
No,
I have.
yes. Yeah, actually I have.
It's not fun. Well, it is. It depends where you are. But
Yeah.
also, photographs taken in the chapel often capture orbs.
I got my pledge.
Got your pledge. We're good to go. There's Dave when we need him. As in all prisons, Brushy Mountain has a solitary confinement area, what there is known as the hole. There are 3 cells that have no windows, and prisoners were often put there for extensive periods, leaving many in poor physical and/or mental health when finally released. This area has been noted as a location where orbs have been seen, even though there is no natural light. Interestingly, the claims are that the orbs are both of purple and red color instead of the more normal white or yellow colors that are generally most common. Some
Interesting.
believe these colors represent an aggressive or evil spirit, where the yellow or white are ones of a gentler nature. Recordings of footsteps and soft whispers have also been captured in the hole as well. So stuff all over the place.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So if you go, and I encourage you to, today the prison is a bit of a tourist attraction, complete with a restaurant called the Warden's Table, serving Southern comfort food on metal cafeteria trays. There's a distillery, the Brushy Mountain Distillery, offering whiskey, vodka, and of course, moonshine. There's even an event space. Chad, I know we have plans this weekend, but graduation parties and all that stuff. But for
Uh,
those without plans this weekend, country music star Clint Black will be performing there Saturday evening at 7 p.m. And tickets are still available, and they're really cheap. Of course, walking tours of the facility are available with daytime options from 10:30 a.m. up until 6:30 p.m. For those brave enough to investigate the paranormal, public overnight investigations are available nightly from 9 p.m. until 4 a.m. There is a minimum, though, of 8 people, and reservations are required. They got to know you're coming. And while local accommodations are limited in the nearby area, Brushy Mountain does have an RV park and a campground. And of course, with any attraction, there's also a gift shop.
Always has to be a gift shop.
Always has to be. You always exit through the gift shop.
Exactly. Yep.
So, in closing, in my research, I found many, many stories of violence inside the prison, but most came with contradictions. Couple this with poor to non-existent records, we may never know the truth of what really happened when inmates were sent to the end of the line. One thing I do know is that the spirits who remain at Brushy Mountain are trying to tell their story. We just have to listen. So let me cite some sources and we'll discuss.
Mm-hmm.
So first is morgancountychamber.com/tourism/historic Brushy Mountain. The website for the establishment is tourbrushy.com. amyscrypt.com/haunted Brushy Mountain Penitentiary. hauntedalmanac.com/prisons-asylum/hauntings historic Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. frightfind.com/Brushy Mountain Penitentiary. And an interesting podcast by lylerussell.net/2022/09/26 TN-GL-episode 7 Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. So it's a place. And judging, if you're looking at the pictures, it's a place that is in kind of the condition you would expect it to be for something that's nearly 100 years old at this point.
Yeah.
We've been in prisons, Chad, right?
To visit, Jamie. Let's get this clear. But yes, we've investigated prisons. That's
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Investigated prisons.
Sorry. Yeah. We've investigated prisons. And, it takes me automatically to West Virginia Penitentiary in Moundsville, West Virginia. Because it seems to, that also was a facility built by inmates. It also had a coal mine.
Yep.
And it also had a ton of violence and, just unspeakable things, violence committed to inmates by inmates. And some of it apparently was acceptable. There was also a jailbreak back in the 80s in this case. Well, it's around the same era. There were guards who were wounded and injured. So there's a pattern here, right? And then there's others and others and others as well.
Yeah, it seems like there is definitely a pattern. Now that you say it seems like there were movements across the country for prisons. Like guards went on strike, prisoners went on strike. Like prisoners had riots. It just seems like that was very cyclical. And it's like if it happened one place, word got around and happened at other places.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. And well, you don't know what you can get until you try as well.
Right.
If another group or entity is doing something and gets the concessions that they were looking for, or at least a lot of them, or some of them even, something's better than nothing.
Right.
So if your conditions could be improved, or, and it goes to the the guards as well. I mean, if they're not safe, I don't want to go to work, kind of thing.
Right.
And I can't, we're in a modern era now. And I can tell you from some experience that coming from the nonprofit world, that the Lancaster County Prison at one point had a deficit of guards, and they were always trying to hire, and, I would assume the newbies have to take the night shift and, some of the stuff that you don't want to do. So maybe that's part of the challenge, but, then you do shift differentials and you find ways to compensate better.
Right.
But the system was always hiring for years, and because they certainly weren't finding people who were willing to do the work because of the place, and here we are in a very modern era where things are much, much better than they were at this facility, even as it closed 13 years ago, 14 years ago, 15, whatever it is now, 2009. And now I can't do math. Apparently, I'm sorry, 16 years ago. Sorry. That's not that long ago. It's in our lifetime.
Yeah, well within our lifetime.
Yeah.
So. Bert had this comment. I started my career in law enforcement as a corrections officer, but it was only a county prison. State prisons are a lot worse.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just I can't imagine having to be part of that from the law enforcement side. Bert, I have tremendous respect for you for this. Like, it's just not something that I could do, and it just But that energy from those people, both sides, is still in that prison.
Yep.
And that's why we're getting some of these stories that we hear about. Um, and we always hear about the prisoner stories, but I'm sure there's spirits of ghosts there, or spirits of ghosts, spirits of guards there as well, because they put their heart and soul in it. So, there were times where guards were killed on the job, and things like that. So,
Absolutely. And anytime there's passion, there's energy,
mhm,
and the residualness of it alone, it might be enough. And until something is until a place is explored, I can tell you all about this. I haven't been there. I'll be honest about it. I haven't been there.
right.
I want to go. I really want to go. It's only 9-ish hours from here, so road trip. I can't believe no one said this shit. Um, but it's not a get in and get out like we do localized things. It's a
Right.
planned trip. So, um, you know, I really thought about doing the the research here. I really thought, well, how much does it cost to rent an RV? You know, like we
Uh-huh.
could all pile in and go, kind of thing. Um, it's not inexpensive, unfortunately.
No,
Um,
it's
but the investigation part of it, it's minimum of 8 people. I know we can find 8 people.
mm,
It's a little pricey in the sense it's like $150 a person. So,
yeah,
okay,
but
sure. But
that's out of the realm of, these places all range from, $40 to 200.
200. Yeah, I know. I know.
So
It's there, but it's high, like on the
yeah,
higher end of things. And it may turn people away, especially with distance, so it's like, oh, but if I tell you what, if I lived anywhere in Eastern Tennessee, West Virginia, of course, but
mhm,
Western Virginia and North Carolina, I mean, this isn't all that far from the Brown Mountain area,
right.
a reasonable drive. So, we could do a little swing in trip, scoop it in,
Hmm.
dip over to the Bell Witch property,
Yeah,
hey,
definitely.
hey. So, but it's a bucket list, and I said this before. I don't do bucket lists, so I don't know why I said that. But like the
Mhm,
idea, like it's on mind to want to get there, and how to do it is just the question.
right.
Um, and it's just one of those places. It's tucked in, it's isolated still. I mean, that's why it was built there. Well, it was really built there because there was a coal mine. There was activity of mining in the area, but this valley that it's in is just perfectly suited to put this facility there.
Because
And
there's nowhere to go.
because there's nowhere to go, right? And there's a cliff on one side, and there's a steep hill on the other, and the valley is a channel then.
Right.
And putting an 18-foot wall around it really impedes trying to get out.
Well,
Um,
and you said the one guy who escaped, was that James Earl Ray,
James O'Reilly, yeah,
only got, what, 8 miles away, after his first day, like
yep, two
that.
days, 2 days
2 days.
out. 8 miles is not that far
No, like, if he was even
for a
on
motivated
foot,
individual, right?
on foot, like, you should be able to get much further. That probably just tells you the terrain that they're dealing with.
Yeah, it's pretty
Um,
rough. It's mountainy and it's rural, so there are no true paths and roads and so forth other than what goes out the front gate,
which you
which
don't want to
is
be on that if you've escaped from prison.
yes, exactly. Yeah. So I can understand it, and we hear story. A few years ago there was a manhunt here in Pennsylvania. A guy up in the northern tier somewhere shot a state trooper and just disappeared into the
Mhm.
woods. It took 2 weeks to find this guy.
Yep.
With all the technologies that we have now, that this is 1980 something, so it's not as much stuff. But they went out with guard dogs and bloodhounds and so forth, and it took them 2 days, and that's pretty good, I guess.
Right.
But the fact that he couldn't get much further, it tells me he's probably in pretty bad shape. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows? But and I'm glad he was caught.
Hmm.
Obviously he's done a crime. He admitted to a crime. He's going to do his time. And it's funny. He outlasted Brushy Mountain. He actually got transferred to another facility, and I think he passed in 2012 or something like that. So it wasn't. Brushy didn't do him in, even with being stabbed all that many times.
Right.
Um, it's amazing. Where you go with him, but one of many. There's another inmate who was um, trying to launch a political career, and it wasn't doing well, and went to his opponent's house and shot and killed him. It's like the mindset there. And that fellow the same way. He outlasted Brushy, and went on to another facility. And eventually passed in prison. These are life sentences. There is, or was, an electric chair at Brushy. Their version of Old Sparky.
Right.
And however, there are no definitive records to say that anyone was executed in the chair. But it was there, so it's a possibility at least. And the records, I don't understand how the records are so poor that things like that. There were executions that occurred,
Uh-huh.
and I believe most were by lethal injection, which was the acceptable means at the time.
Right.
And maybe still is. I don't know, but the electric chair was cruel and unusual punishment, but
Yeah.
other means are not. But individuals, I think 100 inmates were executed by the death penalty
Right.
in the time of the institution being open. So, um, and there was a pauper's graveyard in the back of the facility as well. People who weren't claimed. So they're very much like any of these facilities. There's just unmarked graves and a plot in the back kind of thing, um, which is just another sense that someone didn't get closure
Hmm.
and didn't get a chance to move on.
So, Jamie, a little bit about the electric chair in Tennessee.
Hmm.
It's a choice of the inmate.
Oh,
It was an option. The lethal injection was the primary method,
okay.
um, but the electric chair was allowed to be chosen. And they also Tennessee passed legislation that they could use the electric chair if lethal injection drugs were not available.
So it was an override. Okay.
Yeah. So,
So you do something really horrible and you get the death penalty.
hmm
Do you choose the chair where you are going to have electricity course through your veins until you die, or do you take an injection where you basically fade out? Like I don't understand how you get a choice. That's amazing to me.
yeah, I don't know,
So I
but
mean, neither are good. Hopefully, no one ever does anything to deserve
right.
that.
I don't
Don't
think
condone violence, but
I think lethal injection is not as painless as it sounds from what some of the things that I've read.
okay, well,
Um,
that's fair then.
I mean, it's not. I don't know. None of them are good ways, which is, I guess, part of the punishment. So
Well, of course. Well,
anyway, we, we
we're a little off topic there. Sorry.
we digress. Yeah. Um. So yeah, we typically say, is it haunted? I would say I'm sure that just there's
Oh, yeah.
energy there from. Well, first of all, you're dealing with a coal mine,
Yep.
so you've got coal, which is, how old is coal, all that sort of stuff. You've got inmates that I'm sure ended up with black lung. That was another comment that Bert had earlier.
Yeah.
His uncle worked in the coal mines in southern Ohio most of his life. He ended up with black lung and passed away about 9 years ago. So
Okay.
I'm sure that there were many of these inmates. Again, like you said, OSHA and MISHA were not things that happened. They
No,
just
not
didn't
even thought of
exist.
yet. Right.
We didn't, so I'm sure you had deaths from black lung. You had cave-ins. You had all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. The mines were dangerous, right,
Hmm.
for sure. And with respects to it, these weren't mining companies running it.
Right.
They were consultants at times, but this was the state of Tennessee operating the mine. So they were again using free labor. And they were
Hmm.
cutting the corners whenever they could, and that's why it was such an unsafe space
Yeah.
to be in. And another thing in the consideration of paranormal, um, what could be causing paranormal activity anyway, is that there is at least one, if not two, natural springs running under the facility.
Well,
So there's the running water element of it as well, and that is the facility has a well, and
right.
at one point it had storage tanks that were pulling water up and reserving it, for immediate need use in case there was an issue with like droughts and such. But so the running water element and all the other energies, there's no way this place doesn't have activity. I'm going to go haunted and
Right.
paranormal.
Oh yeah.
I'm say yes. Yes is my answer. Yes. Yes.
And let's see, sandstone. So there's another thing.
Yep. Porous material.
porous material. So just
Yeah,
draws that energy in.
and that kept it there.
Hmm. So
So
I don't know if you saw, but I missed it earlier when Bert put it up. He said we could do a group Airbnb.
yeah, we can. We've done that before.
And I'm all for that because Bert cooks one heck of a breakfast.
Does he does so? Yes, yes, please.
So,
Well, and it's one of those things. These places. Anytime we go out, as investigators, anytime we get to go out with our with our team specifically, but also our friends, it's a fun event. 'Cause there's camaraderie. There's a little bit of humor. There's just and obviously there's a lot of seriousness because we take this seriously. But
hmm
um, it's always one of those things where it's just more fun to do it with the people you know. And
hmm
so yes, let's do it. That's our next. Maybe it's our next summer trip. I think
sounds like a
so.
good plan to me. So,
Okay.
but yeah, we Jamie, it's been a while. It's been a slow summer. We had our trip earlier in the year, which was
Yeah.
definitely worth it. But
Oh yeah.
when was the last time we were at Whitehill?
Oh my gosh, last summer.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
so we
Probably
need
this time last year.
to schedule some trips,
We do.
local trips. But
Yep. I do have a trip scheduled, so
well, you do, yeah, you're right. I'm recovering from camp when you're going on
I
that
know,
trip.
I know. You're from your vacation, sure.
Yeah, vacation.
Not a
Uh,
vacation. I know.
and Bert says,
It's always more fun when you stay over. It's like Mount Joy, right?
"Yep."
It's always more fun when you stay over.
So, well, do you have any final thoughts, Jamie, on Brushy Mountain? I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Like,
Yeah,
there's
it's a unique place. It really is. And if I'd love to hear from folks if you've been there and done that. Drop us a comment. To catch up to this episode along the way. Your thoughts about the place and just any insights or intuitions to it. It is unique, and again, it's been on my radar for years. I think what really caught my attention was the Mayan part of it. That's unique,
Mhm,
but it's just got to be it's got to get done. So
yeah. I mean, there's 113 years of history sitting there.
yeah,
Like
exactly,
it's worth investigating.
absolutely.
So,
So yes, please.
so well, that's cool. Very cool. So, um, I'm just going to throw this out there, Jamie, because this is a completely off topic, but Lancaster history. This
Mhm.
week, June 9th, I don't know if you're aware of this, was the anniversary of the Colemanville dynamite factory explosion.
Version. Yes, yes, I saw
Did you
that.
see that?
Yep.
It's a very unique piece of Lancaster history that a lot of people don't know about, but it's definitely worth looking at. Next year is going to be the 120th anniversary of it.
Wow.
So I think I may have to do a hike that day down into the heart of Colemanville
Yep.
and the wildflower preserve and just go spend some time in silent reflection and stuff because those guys went through a lot that day. So I'm sure
All
you
right.
read the articles. It's definitely worth looking up. Colemanville, Lancaster County explosion.
Yeah.
You'll find it. So
You got to realize though, on the 120th anniversary, there might be other folks there that they might blow up your spot.
maybe.
To that point, this is how things transition.
Hmm.
A dynamite factor. First of all, the fact that it existed here where we are, like that's pretty crazy, right?
But it's not if you understood how they worked because they were built on the rail lines.
Right, and I get that, and I understand the need for the material they were creating, and in the processes. But it's just like they've got to be somewhere, and I understand that.
Right.
Like that was here, but what it is now is nowhere near that. Like
Oh,
how the
right. Yeah.
the land has transitioned out. Now it's a nature preserve.
Hmm.
It's just fascinating. And a lot of things along the rail lines. We are privileged to live along the Susquehanna, first of all, and all of the trade and commerce that came here, all the things that were brought forward because of it. I used to live in a house that was a canal, a general store on the canal,
Okay.
and it was built in 1760 something. It's still a stone house, kind of thing, and two floors essentially, and the basement, which was the door at the time, was this just shop, and still has
Right.
the original hearth in it. Not used anymore, but it's crazy. how cool this was. And they did an addition at some point in the 60s, I think, to put a bathroom in the house, because it didn't have one.
Right.
Even up in the woods. Be able to go up along the trail, the Northwest River Trail between Columbia and Marietta, all of the old um, properties that are still there, like that are
Hmm.
falling down, all the industry stuff, the foundries and such. The roundhouse is there, and you go further up, you get above up to Bainbridge. There's old factory facilities that are just barely still standing enough to see walls. Like there was so much stuff along the Susquehanna at that time that all that energy still has to bring something too. And I know that we talk about how Jott-Nyx Paranormal got founded with Jerry and Melissa going out into the woods in Chickies Rock. But
Right.
that was one of the areas where there was so much activity. There were homesteads there was industry there. The rail was there. It's just there's energy, and where there's energy, there's activity.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a good point.
So,
Thanks for bringing that up. I was remiss to note the anniversary.
mm. Bert says, I want to do the little abandoned village down there. Can't remember the name of it. Are you talking about Billmeyer? Because I know that might be more closer to Kenoi, though. I'm not sure if that's southern end or over closer over to the river.
Well, Kenai's north. That's basically Bainbridge.
Right. But I can't remember where. I think, yeah, I don't know. But he also says that he thinks that there's an Odd Fellows Lodge down there.
Ooh, okay.
So
That'd be interesting.
definitely worth checking out. It's one of these days to add that to our list. We have so much local history, Jamie, that
Yes, I know.
we are remiss in exploring our own area. So
Okay.
he's saying that there's one down by the preserve, which
Okay.
I sort of remember. There was a hotel, there was the Oddfellows Lodge. It's a whole little community, but I can't remember the name of it. But we will have to find out and explore.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's
Legally explore,
that's
Jamie.
an easy road trip. So
Mhm.
that
So
might be a bike trip, even. I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe, maybe.
We'll see.
Hop on the Enola.
If the bikes have motors on them, I'm good.
Come on, man. I saw a dude today do something I haven't seen hardly anybody do. I was coming home from work and I saw a guy pedaling an electric bike. And I thought, you go, guy. Like that's cool. That's you didn't need it. It was a flat area. It wasn't hills or anything.
Right.
All I ever see are the kids in my neighborhood just buzzing around on their bikes, and it's like pedal, exercise. It's a bike.
Uh huh. Well, I know
So
my son Ben has an electric bike, and he uses it when he needs the assistance. But most of the times he's pedaling away because he has a standard bike too. And
sure, sure. Well, he's also, being in Pittsburgh where he is, I don't blame him for having an electric bike with all those hills. Thank
Mhm.
goodness.
Yep. So
But I know he can handle himself. He's done it for years now. So
yeah, yeah, he's one of those guys who ran into problems that pants didn't fit because his thighs were too big, not his waist. Like because he was biking so
yep,
much.
he's
So
got Popeye legs.
good for him. I'm proud of him. So
Yep, absolutely,
so
absolutely.
anyway, yeah. I don't know. I'm having some back end issues on this on the show tonight. Not that anybody can see, but things are really wonky, and hopefully they're coming through okay. But well, let's look at what's coming up.
Sure.
Um, let's see. Next week, I haven't said much about this, but I'm really getting excited about this the show next week. It's the hauntings of my childhood home. I've got 14 excerpts, stories, whatever you want to call them, of things that have happened in the house that my dad has recorded over the years and written down, um, sort of written down, but sort of passed it on. So I'm really excited about that. My son Alex will be joining us. He actually had his own personal experience there. Um, so it should be a fun night for me.
Yeah.
And hopefully I can get some friends from Littlestown to watch the show next week. That'd be interesting too, and get some feedback from them. Speaking of Littlestown, the week after that is Gettysburg. You go 7 miles up the road, and you're in Gettysburg. Jamie, you're covering that. There's a lot to cover there too.
I
So
know, I
I'm not
know.
sure.
I'm trying to figure out how to pare it down. It more likely is going to be an overview
Okay.
and just the key things, and then we'll explore specific areas in other episodes along the way.
Yeah, yeah, because there's a lot we could dig into in
Yeah.
specific areas and yeah, but
Yep.
we'll let you give us an overview and go from there.
Well, I'll make sense of it. I promise.
I'm sure you will. July 1st, we're going to do a season 2 wrap up. Um, Still haven't got any submissions on people's favorite episodes, but we do have time. I haven't put mine in yet either, so
Yeah, they're up here.
uh
It's in the vault.
and maybe it'll just have to be a sort of a live poll as we go that night. Who knows? We'll figure
Yeah.
that out though.
There might
Uh,
be a really short episode too. I don't know.
it could
We'll
be,
find out.
but whenever we say that, then we end up going like an hour and 10 minutes. So
Fair, fair.
so.
Okay.
Then the following week, we're going to be dark the week of July 8th. I'm away. I haven't trained Jamie on how to do this yet,
I'm
and
untrainable. That's it.
no, it's no.
It's the truth. Come on, to say it. It's okay.
So, and then July 15th, we're still not releasing the details on that one, but that's another one I'm excited about. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to
I
it.
really am too. It's gonna be a
So,
fun evening.
so yeah, that's definitely going to be interesting. Um, Jott-Nyx Paranormal Lens. I think this is more has shifted to now. We're going to Jamie and I will definitely be at the horror and uh, haunted crescent and horror paracon on June 28th.
2 weeks. 2 weeks
2 weeks.
from the Saturday. We
12 to
will be in
6.
mid-state.
I know it's 12 to 6. Anyway, it's going to be interesting. Jamie and I have been kicking around some ideas in the last couple hours of what we want to do. So hope people can come out and see us there. It should be a fun afternoon, evening.
Yep.
Let's see what else.
And before we move on, and you can get a separate ticket to go and investigate Crescent itself that evening and that night.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a full day if you wish it to be. I haven't decided how I'm going to do that yet, Chad, but I have not yet investigated Crescent. So, and I know most of the team has.
Right.
So it was during a week and I wasn't available to get away, etc. So, having this opportunity, I don't want to miss it. So I may stay and see if how much I can spend time wise, but still have to get home that night.
Yeah.
But it's a long day, but yeah, it's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to getting there.
So I haven't investigated either. I'm not sure.
I thought you had. I'm sorry.
No, I haven't been there.
Huh.
I was actually at camp
Jeez.
while they investigated that, which is like,
of course.
which is like an hour away. So I was close, but
You were on vacation that week. I get it.
yeah, I'm always on vacation. Um, Paranormal investigations coming up, like we said, June 28th, the Haunted Crescent. Then July 26th, we have a public investigation at the brewery. There are only 5 tickets left at this point, and we're
Man, that's
we're
amazing.
more than a month out. So
That's great.
grab those tickets before they're gone.
Yep.
Then we're back August 16th, September 27th, October 11th, and 18th. Then we have a date in November and a date in December as well, but we'll get those up at some point.
Get a little more room on the screen for those.
And then let's see, we've got our socials. The website is up. We're still working through it, but the basic data is there. You can reach out and find out more about Jamie and I there on the Paranormal Lens section. You can find out more about all the members of our team. The address is www.jott-nyxparanormal.com. You can find that on our Linktree. If you go to Linktree and look up Paranormal Lens, you'll find all this information there. You found us on Facebook or YouTube. We also have a TikTok, Instagram, and you can always email us at paranormallenspodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
Then if you're looking for our podcast, you can find that on YouTube. YouTube is one place you can find it, but Apple Podcast, Spotify, all the normal streaming services, you should be able to find us. I discovered us on another one the other day, Jamie. It was sort of weird. I was like, oh, this looks cool. And it's like, oh, your podcast is here. Do you want to claim it? So
Yes, I do.
so things like that are pretty cool.
Yeah. It's really, the reach that that all media has these days is amazing.
Hmm.
The fact that we've been heard in 32, I believe, countries around the world is just absolutely humbling, first of all,
Hmm.
and also really truly amazing how far and wide information is shared and captured and enjoyed. So thank
Yep.
you everybody for coming along for the ride.
Yeah. So, yeah. Any final thoughts, Jamie?
Well, as I usually say, obviously you saw our schedule coming up, and short of the 2 weeks where there's a dark week and there's a special kind of a project that we're going to do on the 8th and 15th of July. We're always willing and able to do listener submissions. So if there's a topic that comes to mind for you, or a personal experience, or something in that spirit, pun intended. Feel free to reach out. Send us a message via any of the streaming services. Leave a comment or email us again at paranormal lens podcast at gmail.com. And we need a little time to investigate it and research it. But we have done listener submissions in the past. We're certainly willing to do them again. Just let us know. And same thing with letting us know. Leave a review, leave some stars, whatever it may be, whatever the service you're using allows. Give us that feedback and lets us know how we're doing, and hopefully we're meeting your expectations. But if we're not, say so.
Mhm.
We're always trying to improve, and unfortunately, we don't know sometimes until we're told. So, something's either working really well or that just absolutely sucks, and we're good both ways. So,
Yep. We just
I'm,
want to.
I'm honestly I'm very good with both ways.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy to take criticism, and we'll make it better. So, it's up to y'all what you want to see and let us know. So
It's
we'll
always a
go from
work
there.
in progress. Yep.
Always a work in progress.
So,
Absolutely. We all are lifelong learners.
yep. So, all right. Well, on that note, Jamie, I've been working on taglines. We talked about this a long
Okay.
time ago, and I
Yeah.
worked one in last week, and I'm going to throw it out again as we exit. And we want to say good night to everybody. Thanks for watching. Stay alert, stay respectful, and stay curious. How's that?
I like it. I like it. And I also like Mountjoy's more fun when you sleep over.
All right.
Great. I like it, Chad.
So,
This perfect.
we'll,
You're gonna have
we'll,
to write that
we'll
one down for me though.
So, all right. So, on that note, thanks everybody for hanging out with us for the last hour.
Yep.
And Bert, we're glad that we can keep you going between
Yep.
investigations. So,
Yeah, the comment from Bert here, real quick before we go. Tuesdays are the only thing that keeps me going between investigations. So yeah, I know. I know. Me too.
so
Well, not the only thing. There's a lot of other stuff, and I know you have stuff too. But from the touch points of the paranormal, there's gaps, and this helps fill. And I really appreciate the comment. And thank you
yeah,
again, you and Heather and everyone else for coming along for the ride.
so
Super cool.
it means a lot to us to have our faithful followers and our new followers. So,
Yep.
all right. Good night. We'll see you next week, and we'll be talking about the hauntings of my childhood house. Till then, good night.